Okay, we're now live.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Decision Days of me. I'm Nick Adams-King. I'm the Executive Lead Member for Universal Services at Hampshire County Council, and of my colleague Russell Oppenheimer, who'll introduce himself in a few minutes. These Decision Days are being broadcast in one session live on YouTube via the County Council website. I'd like also to welcome Councillor Louise Parker-Jones from the Independent Group and Councillor Tim Groves from the Liberal Democrat Group as well. So you're both very welcome. And I've received apologies from Councillor Derek Mellor, who is the Select Committee Chairman for the Transport and Environment Select Committee, and Councillor Rupert Curl, who is the opposition spokesperson. But as we say, we've got Tim here instead. There are no deputations at my decision day. So without any further ado, we'll go on to the first item, which I declare is one that's local to me in my division, which is a project appraisal of the A3057 in Nursling and Roundhams. I think that's Patrick and then Gemma, probably.
Thank you, Councillor Adams-King. Yes, I'm going to hand straight over to Gemma with this, but as you said, it's the project appraisal for the A3057 Nursling and Roundhams junctions. So Gemma, if you could take us through that, please, if you would.
Yep. So with this scheme, this is a project appraisal for two junction improvements. This is the Bakers Drove and Redbridge Lane Romsey Road junction, and then also the Nursling Street and Horns Drove junctions. So what we're looking to do is we're looking to improve the traffic situation following a development within the area, and also to improve walking and cycling and bus priority along those measures. The scheme itself is to put in traffic lights on the Redbridge Lane junction and widening of the junction as well within the existing highway boundaries. It does border the Southampton County Council boundary as well. So what we're looking to do is actually put in a right turn lane in the middle of the junction with the lights, and then having a walking and cycling improvement as well by putting in pedestrian crossings across those junctions. We're then looking to put on the Nursling Street junction some improved traffic signals as well, so they'll actually talk to each other, they'll recognise when there's buses, and also put advanced stop lines for cyclists on road as well.
Super, thank you. So let's see if there are any comments from anybody. Lou or Tim? Lou?
There was only a couple of comments. One is anything that improves cycling and walking has to be absolutely commended. And I'm sure it could go further, but anything that improves it is a great thing. The thing I'm a little concerned about is I know that there were trees that were being removed, and I wanted to be reassured that the council is going to improve the biodiversity, because any loss of trees, given we're in a climate emergency, it would be really bad, because that's just as important as improving our transport network. Thank you.
Gemma, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, certainly. So we're actually drafting the plans for landscaping now. We're actually doing that in conjunction with Southampton City Council so that we can make sure there's, I believe, 7 trees in total that we've identified that would need to be removed. A couple of these are actually boundary trees that were part of that recent fire along the ecological stewardship ground. So we're actually going to look to remove those and then put in some new ones. And we're actually looking at we're not allowed to say it's a net gain because we've not done the original calculations, but there will be an improvement, significant landscape improvement based on the plans that we're providing.
Yeah, along this bit of road, there was a fire last summer, just on the Southampton side of the boundary. So that's what Gemma's talking about, Louise. They have it there. Tim, did you want to add anything? No, all good, Russell?
I'll just say that it's great to see the local transport plan priorities starting to see the light of day with schemes like this. And I know how much work goes into these schemes. It's a very clear, thorough report, but I know it's taken years of consultation and design and feasibility to get to this point, and it is really appreciated. Thanks.
Yeah, and Gemma will know. Thanks for the consultation, because it's been quite a long period of consultation on this one. Do you mind, Gemma, if I just ask because it's local to me, if I just make a few comments myself about it as well. So my thanks to the residents who have contacted me over the last couple of weeks about this, and I recognise that there's been some nervousness around it for a while, not least because when the Fen Meadow development was originally put in, there was a promise of a roundabout here, and we've explained that we can't deliver that any longer because Southampton withdrew the offer of including their land in the junction. One of the residents in particular that attended the parish council meeting last week about this and has been in touch a lot is Mr. Bishop. I did promise that I would reflect some of his comments in my comments today. He in particular was talking about two things about which he was concerned: whether there'd been a full traffic assessment of the junction carried out, and also whether the bus stops by the junction would need to be relocated as a consequence of the development.
So we are dealing with a couple of questions that Mr. Bishop, so I will have that information available to him shortly. Obviously, as you know, it's just come over to myself, so I'm just collating everything at this point. From all of the previous work that we have carried out during feasibility and prelim designs, there has been several traffic surveys carried out. As you mentioned, the roundabout was one of these options that was looked into. It was looked into quite a few times. There's several reasons that that's not a viable option. Is the sort of the ecological impact that would have. You see a significant amount of tree removal and loss of habitat if that was to go ahead. There's also significant cable diversions where there's a copper cab or there's 3 copper cabinets within proximity to that junction. So that meant that was not a viable option. With the traffic studies, they showed that a roundabout would have an improvement. It would have no improvements for walking, cycling or bus priority, whereas a traffic signal approach will improve situations for all traffic modes, which is why that's our preferred option. With the other part of the request from Mr. Bishop was that we had significant, sorry, lost my train of thought then. We had significant amounts of traffic studies undertaken, and that was all put together, and we've got that all detailed.
I know I've seen the data of that, so so I'm putting you on the spot to tell me something I know already, but for the benefit of Mr. Bishop, who no doubt is probably watching, I wanted us to say that as well. And a couple of things that came out of the parish council meeting last week. Obviously, there are benefits in terms of the Nursling Street, Horns Drove junction and the lights there being moved. We talked about the fact that there isn't an accident record at this junction, but there is one at that one. So the use of intelligent lights and the relocation of the lights there are helpful. Although not specifically part of this scheme, this also does then allow us to review the speed limit along Redbridge Lane as well, which is part of it. And I think we're going to be looking at that speed reduction there, which will be of help as well.
Yes, definitely. So that's something else that I am also looking into. So we're looking at the safety profile where there's access to the community space. So there's that Greenfield, which is Millbrook Rugby Club. So I'm actually in discussions with Southampton, so whether we can put a crossing across there, because at the moment there's a recognised desire line to get to that community green space.
That's super. And final thing is that we are within these plans completely aware of the planning application that's in for the old Land Rover garage that they want to turn into a co-op and flats. And there's been a bit of noise around that as to say, oh, what will happen if that happens? But our planning includes making sure that whatever aspiration there is for that site is taken into account in this.
Yeah. So we've actually we've reviewed our plans with the idea that would have gone in first. So what we've done is we've looked at the traffic situations, and unfortunately the co-op application was withdrawn by the applicant. We've discussed it with them from a planning development team side, and we've said to them about double lining between the two junctions so that we can ensure there's no sort of restrictions on traffic movement if anybody does park on the main road. So we're working with them for just in case this application does come back through.
Yeah, super. That's great. I'm sorry everyone to have focused on a local thing for me, but there's a lot of local noise around this one, and I just wanted to make them to verbalise what we talked about. So The recommendation that we have is in paragraphs 2 to 5 on page 3. I have to say, from my perspective, I've seen how intelligent lights linked in this way can work when I was back in Bournemouth, and we had issues around the AFC Bournemouth Football Club as they began to go up the leagues and become busier and busier with people, and it worked really well. Holistically, there are lots of benefits around the other junction at Nursling Street and Horns Drove, and also for Redbridge Lane. So I'm very happy to support your recommendation, Gemma. Thanks so much for all the hard work you put into this, because I know it's been quite a long journey to get to this point, with quite a lot of input from lots of local people around it. And I'm grateful to everyone who's been in touch with me to let me know what they thought along the way.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Okay, so on to the next one, which is, I promise you, not going to be anywhere near as nowhere near as many questions, I don't think. Lisa and Patrick, and concessionary travel reimbursement update.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So this is, as you a proposal for a revised approach to concessionary fares. In it, you'll see one of the recommendations is about ring fencing up to £1.2 million to support local bus services, but also and related infrastructure as well. And the third part of that is also how we develop the mechanism for that in conjunction with yourselves. So I'll hand over to Lisa to take us through the detail. Lisa.
Afternoon, everyone. So this report is really about reflecting updated Department for Transport guidance as to how we should reimburse our bus operators. So we brought another report to Decision Day in November, which was following DfT guidance, which at the time said that we ought to move back to reimbursing bus companies based on the trips that actually took place. But whereas over the COVID period, we've been reimbursing at a higher level, at pre-COVID levels. The DfT issued new guidance in November that said, actually, we'd like it if local authorities reimbursed bus operators, continue to reimburse bus operators at a higher rate, so based on pre-COVID levels again. So this report seeks approval that we go back, well, I say go back, we continue with the mechanism we currently have this financial year, bring it to next financial year, where we are reimbursing our bus operators for the use of concessionary passes based on pre-COVID levels, but adjusted for mileage. So if a bus operator is doing 10% less mileage than they were doing pre-COVID, they get 10% less concessionary fare revenue. So that's recommendation 1. Recommendation 2 is surrounding our underspend, our temporary underspend on the concessionary fares budget. This has arisen because, as we remember, through COVID, bus use was not encouraged. In fact, at times you were told absolutely don't use bus services, and our concessionary bus passengers have been the slowest to recover in terms of coming back to bus. So your average bus passenger, the people who would pay a fare, are probably about 90% in comparison to pre-COVID levels, but those concessionary bus pass holders, only probably about 60 to 70% of those are travelling in comparison to pre-COVID. So we've got this underspend. It's temporary because the trend is, in terms of concessionary pass usage on bus services, is up. So we have a temporary period where we will have some underspend. And the recommendation is that that underspend is ring-fenced specifically to be used on supporting bus services so that they're still there for when that patronage recovers, and as well improving our related infrastructure. So that could be the accessibility of bus stops, making sure there's a decent hard standing for people can actually get to the stops, maybe real-time information systems, that kind of thing. The last recommendation is really about delegated authority to go over to the director to enable us to agree on the mechanism and for how we will spend this money. So there's principles within the report that talk about we'll use money on things that will further our ambitions as set out in our bus service improvement plan, but we'll draw down in more detail as to what that means, and that will go to Patrick for approval to ensure that the money is still spent in accordance with the County Council's ambitions and objectives.
Very clear. Thank you very much, Lisa. Lou and Tim, any comments from you? Lou first, then Tim.
Only a couple of comments from me. I'm really pleased to see that we're looking at how we can encourage people back on the buses. I think it's really critical at the moment. I think it would be really helpful to know that some of our work we're doing at the county level is aligning with some of the work that's being undertaken across the rest of the country, actually, because there's quite a lot of organisations which we're hearing through the National Public Transport Consortium which are looking at the barriers for bus use and why people have been slower to come back to buses. I also think that it would be great if we heard back at the scrutiny committee, Councillor Adams-King, about what the money has been spent on and what that tangible benefit has been. I think that would be really incredibly helpful for members to understand. But actually, I really welcome this, and I'm sure you're going to support it, and I think it's really, really worthwhile. Thank you.
Thanks. And I'm sure we're very happy to bring this, as well as sort of, more holistically how we're working with buses, back to the scrutiny committee over the summer, perhaps, and that's something we can talk to Derek about factoring that into the agenda for them. Tim.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Lisa, for that report. And I'd just like to say I think the team are putting a lot of effort into getting things back, getting things back to normal, or improving things as they can, despite all the problems we're having with loss of bus services in some areas. So I think the team is doing a good job to try and do that. And I think this hopefully will help a little. We've got an opportunity here with this underspend of concessionary fares. We also have another opportunity in the fact that we've got a £2, cap on single bus fares at the moment. So I think we need to take advantage of that, and I think we need to publicise it much more. I mean, we may be publicising it already, but there may be opportunity to publicise it more whilst we've got this opportunity and we've got these funding. So I would be in support of this proposal. Thank you very much.
Super, thanks. And Russell, anything you'd like to add?
No, nothing to add from me. I'm very supportive.
Okay, I'm very happy to support this proposal. The recommendations are in paragraphs 2 to 4 on page 17 of the agenda. I think, certainly having looked at the fact that we've had to withdraw some of our services under the savings that are about to end at the end of this month, but the decision was made last year. Everything that we can do to continue to support bus services while they get back to normal has got to be a good thing. So I'm glad actually that the government has reversed their advice, and we're going to be providing them with support at a greater level than it might otherwise have been over the next year, because only through that can we ensure that the buses are there. If buses aren't on, then people don't use them. But if people want their bus services to remain, they do need to use them as well. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword there. So yes, I'm very happy to agree with that. Lisa, thanks so much for that. That was very clearly explained. And then the other one is also your report, you and Patrick. It's the bus contract about Bishop's Waltham, Hedge End to Eastleigh.
Okay, so I'm going to hand straight over to Lisa to take us through the details for this one. Thank you.
Thank you. So in January this year, the bus operator Zelabus handed back the contract, or gave us notice they wanted to hand back the contract for what is currently the X9, X10 service, which does indeed go through Bishop's Waltham, Hedge End and Eastleigh. So we have put a number of tenders out on our dynamic purchasing system in order to replace that bus service. And within that tender process, we issued a number of lots because, as is well discussed, certainly in the industry and certainly in briefings that we've held, the operating costs for bus services have increased since COVID. All the pressures that face businesses around the country also face bus operators, and not least the driver shortage that's currently there, which means driver wages increase, and therefore the more pressure goes on the operating costs of a bus service. So we knew we were tendering when we tendered that we wouldn't get like for like, but we still tendered that option to make sure that was the case, to do that affordability test. So we tendered a number of options: a like for like timetable, a much reduced timetable, a reduced timetable with an extra journey for those people who lost their service back in September, who live along the Hamble Peninsula, and then a fourth option, which amalgamated all of those, the reduced timetable, the Hamble Peninsula, and also provided a school run in the morning to ensure that the children could get to Swanmore College. And that is the lot we would like to propose is awarded. So this report really asks for authority to approve the contract, be for 4 years with a possible extension for a further 2, as a total maximum cost of about £612,000. That's the total cost over the whole term of that contract.
Just about to talk on mute, but I'm not now. So that's super. Thanks very much for that. That again makes complete sense and is very clear. Let me go to Tim first. Tim is itching to say something. So
absolutely, I am. So I'm very pleased to see this report that you're managing to get a replacement service for the service that Lille Bus had withdrawn again at short notice, as they're entitled to. So that is very good news that you seem to be getting the service back. I haven't checked the timetable to make sure it's the same, to check whether it's the same as before, but if it is, that is really good news. And also very pleased that you've managed to include within it the restoration of a service that we lost in September last year from Hamble to Hedge End, a partial restoration of that service. We went all the way to Eastleigh before, but at least it goes as far as Hedge End.
Yes.
So very, very pleased that you've managed to get something in place. As I say, that was lost for 9 months. Thank you very much for doing that. I just want to draw attention to just one other issue that Nick will know about, and Lisa as well, but that we have lost the service from Chandler's Ford and Hiltonbury to Eastleigh for the same 9-month period, and we still haven't got a decision to take it back. But I know you have things in hand, so I'd be pleased to hear if you could just sort of put on record what you plan to do for that. That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Can I just come back to the earlier point, Councillor Groves? The timetable is reduced to what it currently. The timetable for the proposed new service, which would be the 49, is reduced to the existing X9, X10 service, just for affordability reasons. When we put the tenders out, we couldn't afford what was currently operating. So the option that we're proposing is the most timetable we can afford. So whilst it is reduced, it offers the most journey opportunities that we can within the budget we have available.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you.
And did you want to make a mention of the Chandler's Ford link as well?
I can do so. So we're currently exploring how we can ensure that we are following the process, the democratic process, to get approval for that route. Whether it needs to go to decision day or whether the decision can be made outside of decision day, but still following a formal process. And once that has been decided, I will be able to let you know the outcome. But the idea is that we get that service. We've got an operator for that to replace that X6, X7 service. The operator's ready, they're on board. We just need to get the approvals in place to enable us to go ahead and start that service.
Just to reassure you, Tim, I know Lisa's working really hard on it, as is Patrick, and I'm very excited on that, and we just need to find the quickest way to resolve it for you, so that we know that your division currently misses out, and we'll make sure that happens.
Yeah, just a big thank you to all three of you for putting your effort in to make that happen. Thank you.
Sorry, Louise.
It's only a couple of little observations. It is great that we've got something. Something is definitely better than nothing. I still feel sorry for the young people who need to get to school, who are beyond that 3-mile limit, and their transport options, because they are not as robust as before. And it would be reassuring to think that you might be working with the bus operator to try and ensure that the bus is a double-decker, so that they can get as many students as available that can use the service onto it. And I'm glad to see that you've done quite a lot of work to try and tie up the bus arrival and departure times so that those circular routes can be maintained. So really well done on that.
Thank you. So for the students going to Swanmore, we've spoken to Zelabus, who also provide the X9A on a commercial basis, and they plan to continue that service. So there should be the X9A, which can take any passengers to Swanmore College, as well as the new 49, which will take the eligible students to college. So I'm hoping that capacity will be sufficient. And as you said, we've explored the idea of the double-decker, and Stagecoach is still undergoing their health and safety checks as to whether that's possible or not.
Thank you very much.
Super, and that is good news for, I know Lisa and I both had some correspondence last week from parents at Swanmore who were concerned about it, and so it's good news that we're able to offer both options still post the end of this school year. And I know that's been quite stressful for people. So Tim, you want to come back?
Yeah, just very briefly, Hedge End School, I have had some correspondence with people unable to get to Hedge End schools because of the bus timetable as well. Does this help address that or not?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but I can go away and confirm that with you offline. Do you mean Wildern School? Is that the school that?
I believe it's Wildern, yes.
Yeah, okay. I've been aware that there's been issues with that school before through officers at Eastleigh Borough, so I'll go away and check on that one.
Thank you.
Super. Okay. Both okay? Yep. Russell, anything to add?
Nothing to add.
No. I think we digress to both of our opposition spokespeople because they're both Eastleigh councillors.
Yeah.
They know the area much better than us.
Yeah. Oh, it's been interesting to hear what they say, and it's a really good news story, and well done to Lisa and the team, and to you, Nick.
Yeah, I've done absolutely nothing other than making the decision. So, just to say thanks very much again to Lisa and to Mike and the team, because they've done a sterling work in getting this service back and running, and it was a challenge, particularly the handball bit of it, I know. So well done. The recommendation is in paragraph 2 on page 25, and I'm very happy to approve that. And that is the end of my decision day, you'll be glad to know. So I'm handing over to Russell, who can then take things forward for his decisions as well.
Thank you, Nick. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Russell Oppenheimer. I'm the Executive Member for Countryside and Regulatory Services, and I'd like to thank you for attending my virtual decision day today. So I have one item to consider, which is property asset decisions. And as this is an exempt item, and as there are no deputations today, I would like to now thank those who are attending on the webcast, because we are moving to an exempt item, which means we're going to stop the webcast. So anyone who may be watching either live or recorded, thanks very much for attending. And it's at this point we bid you farewell. And I'd like to ask Katie to stop the webcast, please.